So over the weekend, we got to go to the Genshin Impact concert. It was really, really special, and it was just really well done. They gave this really cool concert tour thing. It's like a ticket that, it's very, very fancy with some characters, and it's just really, really satisfying. Melodies of an Endless Journey. It was really nice to be in a concert venue that was very lively, full of young people, and really just, cosplaying and energetic and cheering loudly, screaming, cheering, running as fast as possible to get to the merch line like feral beasts. It was really fun to see. And more than that, I really just had a couple thoughts on the concert that I wanted to share. This is a non-spoilery type of discussion, so if you are going later on in the year, I don't think you'll be too spoiled. Some of the things I really, really liked were, first of all, the music, obviously, but it just really goes to show how well Genshin music translates to an orchestra, to a symphony hall. It translates perfectly. So many of the pieces basically sounded like you just pulled them from the game. Now, obviously, every orchestra, depending on how well versed or well practiced they are in the specific game's music, is going to perform certainly at a different level. But in general, this music is pretty nuanced and pretty easy to lift off from the game and put it onto the concert hall, right? That's really cool thing about Genshin that I think Genshin does insanely well. And I've said this time and time and time again, it's very easy to translate Genshin from game to symphony to concert hall. That said, it was also interesting to hear where the orchestra struggled, what parts of the orchestration or what parts of the compositions were a little bit more challenging, because you heard the sort of human error elements of it, especially if the orchestra, let's say they only practiced for 2 or 3 sessions for 4 or 5 hours. You can really hear where that sort of fell in, where there was maybe a dip in intonation, or there was some rhythm issues where they weren't fully synced up with the conductor. Those are things that the general public probably is not going to notice, but it was something that I noticed and I had to point out just because I thought that was really interesting, not even in a negative way, but just oh, that's interesting how hard that is when you're not sitting there in the studio recording it, breaking it down measure by measure, or however long it takes to rehearse these things when they're implementing them into the game, right? So that was also really interesting. One thing that this concert did differently than another video game concert that I've attended was actually the limited use of in-game cutscenes. So there were certain character trailers that were featuring the cutscenes. So the conductor basically is looking at a monitor. He has a couple lights, and then there's the go button, and then that's where he starts his ictus. The ictus is the rhythmic pattern that you see conductor, you wonder why a conductor's up there. Basically what I do every video is what conductors do, but in correct rhythm and stuff. And so that was really fun to see the character themes play over top on this big screen, and then the conductor and the symphony match exactly what was happening as the trailer was playing out, or as a certain cutscene was playing out. However, what's really cool is that actually that wasn't the norm. In fact, I would say over 75% of the concert was exclusively done without in-game cutscenes, which I thought was so refreshing. Kind of let the music speak for itself, which is a huge part of this channel, right? The idea that video game music can stand on its own. It doesn't need the context of the game in order to make us feel connected to it, right? Now, obviously, you and I, we have experiences playing the game, feeling the game's music, experiencing the music within the context of the game, but it's really, really cool to then take all that and extrapolate it and pull it out of the experience of the game. That was really, really rewarding and really, really fun. And actually, what was really cool is that in this particular venue, they actually had cameras that were positioned so you could watch the players, for especially folks that were sitting in the upper balcony, who maybe when you're looking down just kind of see 40 to 50 to 60 people just kind of playing. You don't get to see their faces or their emotions or their expression as they're communicating through music and through their instruments, but they had cameras that would zoom in. You would see the conductor from the front, which normally you're just seeing their backside. You would see certain different angles of different instruments, the piano, the harp, the oboist, the clarinetist, the flautist. It was really, really cool to get that in-person special touch where you can witness the emotion and passion of a player as they're working through a certain legato phrase or a certain solo section. It was really, really, really rewarding. The music was really, really solid. Whoever organized this concert did a really good job of a healthy mixture of fast and slow pieces. It wasn't just only bangers. It was also like some of the slower, more tender stuff that, you know, can really easily get kind of swept under the rug by the popular pieces of a certain game or you know, certain whatever compositions and stuff. So it was really nice to see that. Honestly, it was just so lively. It was so fun as a person who literally spent decades on stage to hear like, wow, you know, little applause and stuff when a piece would start, because it would be recognized, or someone would click into it and be like, oh my god, that's my favorite piece, or like whatever. Like, it was just so fun to feel that excitement. And I know for a fact that those players probably felt that too, because it's a really satisfying feeling as a performer on stage to get that feeling of like, yes, the audience is with us. It doesn't matter what happens. In fact, there was a moment where they had two times there was an early start, and so the third time they finally started correctly, but no one cared. You know, no one minds a mistake, because not only are all the players human, but also you're dealing with technology and having to sync up and with the video and so on and so forth. It was really, really, really like not a big deal, and people were really just happy to be there. This also goes for the applause at the end of pieces. It was riotous. There was one particular character demo that you could probably guess which one it was that was played, and it was really, really enthusiastic, and people just screaming at the top of their lungs, ah! You know, it's just so incredibly satisfying. And I couldn't help but be like, oh man, I hope that these players up there feel really, really good about what they're doing, because more than likely the players that are playing in this orchestra are not used to playing video game music, or they don't play it very frequently, or maybe they have their own prejudices against video game music, or maybe they love video game music, and so for them this was an opportunity to really get out and do more of it, and it was fun to like wonder what their opinions were about the music, because it sounded actually incredibly classical. Even the sections that are in the different regions of Tevat, which, you know, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, all the different regions have different soundscapes, but even they all kind of sounded classical. They all had that Western orchestra feel to them. And it was really, really nice to hear and experience that in a live space. The other thing that I thought was sort of interesting was how, in a way, when you strip away some of the EDM elements that you get from when you're in a studio and you can do some sound work on the piece to kind of clean it up, you really heard a lot of the impurities in the orchestra. So like some things just didn't necessarily fit as well as they do in game, like when there's like a trap beat or an EDM styling or something in a sound file that's laid over top of a track. Like, I think that even though I think live is a really interesting experience, there were some pieces that I much preferred the in-game version, because it captured just a little bit more of the gravitas, or like it felt like sometimes the symphony had to adjust to what that was out of game and out of the like sound studio, versus like what we hear in game and in the studio, which is much more, I don't know, it has a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can add and layer into that. That's like a little thing that doesn't really matter, but there really is something special, and I haven't been in an orchestra setting. I rarely go to the symphony anymore, but I have to say that one of the coolest things for me was just being in a space where there was a communal give and take, and it's something that is really special about a live performance, that if you've never been to one, I highly recommend you can, or try to, if you can, is the idea of like past and shared connection between the players on stage and the audience. And it's this cyclical pattern that's really important. The more that the audience feeds the orchestra, the more, or the performers, the more the performers are able then to feed back into the performance, and so on and so forth. So it becomes this beautiful give and take where everyone is sort of dancing with each other. The audience also, in that one particular moment, thousands of people come together and you can feel the visceral energy. And there's a little bit of a bubbling up and excitement about being in an audience that is really, really enthusiastic, that makes you really happy. Another thing that I really, really liked was just how young the audience skewed. I don't need to tell you that the average person that plays Genshin is probably in their mid to early 20s. Or late 20s. And there's 36-year-olds like me who enjoy the game too, and older. And what's really fun is just knowing that my points about classical music still being relevant are accurate. And that I really do believe that if we can get audiences that came to that Genshin concert to go to other standard classical works, There's never ever going to be a problem with the idea of symphonies dying, opera dying, orchestra performances dying. Not to say that anybody even thinks that now, but I just think that the marketing, there's just such a world here where we can really mix and match and combine these beautiful pieces from Genshin, from other games, combine them with classical standard literature, Mozart, Brahms, Mendelssohn, Beethoven, and these can combine and live vicariously within each other and fuel each other and propel each other. Genshin has great music. The world of classical music has great music. Genshin and classical music are the same. Now you may say, well, one's for a video game and one's for a symphony hall. And I would tell you that I went to a concert and they literally sound identical with some variation. So this idea of like separating genres and keeping genres separated is basically pointless. And there's so much possibility here, and it's really exciting as a person who loves classical music and loves video game music, how we can integrate these two things into one. And yeah, hopefully you get the chance to see this concert. I know it was really hard to get tickets. I hope you get the chance to see it, or see any concert if there's an availability. Just go to a symphony hall. Just go to an opera. Experience this stuff for yourself if you can, if it's around. I can't recommend it enough. It's a really magical, sometimes a one-in-a-lifetime kind of experience that I hope that you're able to take advantage of at some point in your lives, because it's really, really special. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. Bye.